The White House today struggled to get its message straight on immigration, both at the border and on Capitol Hill. The president, of course, reversed course earlier in the week, signing that executive order ending his administration's policy on separating migrant children from their parents. But it's still unclear how those children will be handled going forward. Meanwhile, in Washington, the president backpedaled on a commitment to House Republicans that he would support their immigration legislation. This morning, Trump tweeting out Republicans should stop wasting their time on immigration until after we elect more senators and congressmen and women in November. Dems are just playing games, have no intention of doing anything to solve this problem, this decades-old problem. We can pass great legislation after the red wave. Just 2 days ago, the president reportedly promised House Republicans that he would support them 100% and vowed he would not leave them in the wilderness. But the president's tweet risks stalling what little momentum that Republican legislation had. It is also a dramatic reversal for an administration that spent days demanding action from Congress.
Congress and the courts created this problem, and Congress alone can fix it.
The president isn't trying to kick the can down the road. He's actually trying to work with Congress.
We're going to be signing an executive order. We're going to also count on Congress.
We look forward to, Congress playing a big role in this. There are a lot of things that need to be done, can only be done by Congress.
We're also wanting to go through Congress. We will be going through Congress.
And amid the political back and forth, the fate of roughly 2,300 children lost in a confusing labyrinth of bureaucracy remains unknown. On Thursday, the Pentagon announced military bases were being prepared to shelter as many as 20,000 migrant children. And Time magazine reported the Navy is preparing plans to construct, quote, temporary and austere detention camps for tens of thousands of immigrants. Politically, this is adding up to be one of the toughest weeks of Trump's presidency. Today, he tried to reclaim the narrative, sharing the stage with families who lost loved ones to crimes committed by people in the country illegally.
You hear the other side, you never hear this side. These are the families the media ignores. They don't talk about them. Very unfair.
For more, I'm joined by Yamiche Alcindor, White House correspondent for the PBS NewsHour and an MSNBC political analyst, Bret Stephens, columnist for the New York Times and a political contributor, Raul Reyes, attorney and an MSNBCnews.com contributor. Yamiche, let me start with you. So the politics of immigration and the president and the messages he's sending. You had two bills there in the House. The Republicans were working on one, a hardline bill, one that's designed to get a little bit more moderate support. The president this week was supposed to go there and rally support for the moderate bill. Instead, he ends up putting out that message saying, just don't do anything. We need more votes. Then supposedly after that, he called and tried to backtrack a little bit. At the end of the week, is there any push from the White House for any specific legislation on immigration?
Well, I talked to a White House source only a few minutes ago, and that person told me that the president still supports either one of the bills that the House is considering. That person said if they pass the hardline bill, if they pass the compromise bill, the president will sign it. The problem is that the president doesn't believe that the bill can pass the Senate. They were complaining that Republicans have such a slim majority in the Senate that they don't feel like they can get that bill through, which means that it can't actually get to the president's desk. The president then, because he's so frustrated, he's now tweeting out that this is a waste of time. He's trying to make it a midterm issue. I'm told that the president, if these bills next week fail, that he wants a bill specifically on the Flores settlement, which of course is that court case that said that it strictly limits how immigrant families and immigrant children in particular are housed.
Yeah, so Bret, one of the issues here is the Republican Party itself, the Republicans in the House, cannot seem to get on the same page on this. So you've got this hardline measure and you got this compromise measure. And from what I can tell, the difference between them is in this compromise measure, they got the wall, they got family detention, and they got the path to citizenship for the Dreamers. The hardline measure doesn't have citizenship for the Dreamers and does have reductions in legal immigration numbers. Well, can you see a way of...
The compromise measure is terrible because it takes the United States in precisely the wrong direction. We have an immigration problem in this country. We don't have enough immigrants. We need a lot more immigration if we're going to continue to fund entitlements, if we're going to continue to have a vibrant, diverse, effective workforce, if we're not going to have Japanese-style stagnation.
But what's the market for that message in the Republican Party?
You know, as a matter of fact, I think at least until a few years ago, back when I actually affiliated with a Republicans, there were a lot of Republicans who understood the basic free market case, leaving aside the case for decency, the case for American values, the free market case for having a strong pro-immigration policy. And you will still find there are many Republicans in states that depend on immigration and do not want this kind of hardline position that has overtaken Fox News and the other organs of conservative nativism and extremism. So what you now have is a Republican Party sort of riven on its own ideology and its own incompetence, unable to actually arrive at what ought to be the proper conservative free market position, which is a pro-immigration position.
Does it feel to you like the base of the Republican Party, the voters, the folks who picked Trump in these primaries, is it even plausible they're going to land where you're talking about on this?
Look, I think there is, I don't want to say a silent majority, but there is perhaps a great many middle-of-the-road conservatives who understand, even if they want, a more sort of legalized system, a more regular system, that immigration is fundamentally good for this country. My mother was a displaced person, a refugee to this country. My father came from Mexico. That represents millions of people who understand who understand that. But they don't really have a voice in today's Republican or conservative establishment, because the moment you try to make the case for immigration, you've got some jerk yelling amnesty and open borders and globalist.
Right, the president's tweet, by the way, also exacerbated challenges faced by Republicans on the Hill. Let's take a look at the dramatically different reactions to what he had to say.
The president saying, let's have a red wave, get more people elected to Congress who want to vote yes on a solution.
The longer this issue festers, I think it'll have the reverse effect. Rather than creating a red wave, it may very well be part of what creates a blue wave.
Meanwhile, on the House floor, Democrat Ted Lieu played an audio recording of crying migrant children to try to bring attention to the 2,300 children still separated from their families. Let's watch.
The gentleman will suspend.
For what reason, Madam Speaker?
The gentleman is in breach of quorum.
Cite the rule, Madam Speaker.
Rule 17 of the House.
There's
that
no
prohibits
rule that says I
Rule
can't play
17.
sounds.
The gentleman will suspend.
Why are you trying to prevent the American people
Rule
from listening to what it
17
sounds
of
like
the
in a
House
detention
prohibits
facility?
the use
These are
of that
babies and
device.
kids in a detention facility. Why do you not let the American people hear what they are saying?
Raul, looking at the politics of this on Capitol Hill right now, what you see Ted Lieu talking about right there, the politics of family separation, every poll I've seen are toxic for Republicans.
Right.
You find a split in the Republican Party, and you go outside the Republican Party and you find everybody else is looking at this largely and saying, we want no part of this.
Right.
So on that front, it seems clear where the politics fall. I'm wondering, when you get beyond that question, say, okay, what do you now do with migrant families who are caught going across the border without documentation? What then, because the Republican compromise approach would call for, what they are trying to put in this law would call for
compromise.
What they're calling their compromise. We'll put it that way. But I'm wondering, do you see grounds for compromise when they say, okay, keep families together that are caught going across the border, keep them together in detention while the adults wait processing, while the adults wait trial. Keep the family together, but they're in detention. Is that something? Is there going to be any buy-in on that from Democrats?
I do not think so, because I think Democrats and many independents would regard that type of approach as giving into, say, a hostage situation where the president is using these young people in the migrant camps, these families, as bargaining chips to achieve what he wants. But one thing that's very problematic when we're talking about this situation is we have this certain segment of the electorate, majority of Republicans, who have bought into the completely false notion that we have a so-called illegal immigration crisis, which we do not. We are the president himself mentioned it's something like a 17-year low. Our illegal apprehensions and entries have been in a steady decline since the years of 2008, 2009. All of the metrics show that this is actually the best time for immigration reform. But the president has pushed this false narrative, and now we are at a place. This week is so unusual because the president, for once, on immigration, on illegal immigration, is very much on the defensive. And when you want to talk about policy and solutions, it's very hard to compete against pictures, audio tapes, and these very disturbing images that are now out there. And we're only going to see more now that we have so much media down.
Yeah, I know, and I take your point, and I agree on what the reaction's been. It's pretty clear.
Right.
I think we have these polls. This, though, struck me this week, some of the polling on this, and I want to run this by the panel here if we can put this up. The question here, This is, as we said, when you poll the family separation, extremely unpopular. But when you poll the underlying policy, the Trump administration says force them into this zero tolerance policy, which when you ask this in a poll, the idea of arresting and jailing and holding until trial anybody crossing the border illegally, you get plurality support for that, 46 to 37%. And then I think we might have the second question here in this same poll. This is an Economist YouGov poll. OK, you got the families crossing illegally. What do you do? And that idea of family detention, you hold, this is true among Democrats and Republicans. That has plurality support right now.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.